looking to of those words? You, sir.
Looking. I'm a full stack developer, architect, and I manage dev group, but looking for a different opportunity right now. So if anybody, anything, let me know.
What is your name?
Benjamin Kit.
Kit? Benjamin Kit is looking for work, full stack developer.
I'm looking for work also. Jordan Jelinek, developer, was contract hire. I worked primarily in ASP Classic. It was an excellent experience for me, my first experience. I'm looking forward to another experience.
Barker, independent consultant, currently rolling off a project I've been on for about a year at for Quicken Loans called My Perfect Home. It's an Angular app looking for something similar. You know, be interested in getting into Node.js or anything where I can kind of maybe break away from the .NET stack and start learning some more open source technologies.
In the back with the beige coat. That's you. Here.
My name is Pat Orth. I'm looking for work. I've been self-teaching myself front end, JavaScript, HTML, CSS. I started like in October, so now I'm learning Angular.
I've been doing a lot of JavaScript work lately. 2 years working for Accelerator doing Titanium development. I do full stack, Node.js, even all the way down to Arduino. So if you are looking for an independent consultant, my website is Captain Ajax, CAPN,
I'm Noah Keitel. I'm looking for work. I've worked primarily on quite a bit with backend too. And yeah, about it. Angular. I'd like to focus on Angular, sort of front end, newer front end technologies.
It's almost a small dev team.
You guys all need to start talking. Yeah.
They're all going to refer each other to virtual app.
Our solution is not. Yeah. I would say all of you guys fit within both of our wheelhouses, so definitely talk to us and we can help you guys out.
And I'm an entrepreneur, so if y'all just want to start a company, we can do that.
Talk to Dale. Dale will lead you all to victory. Yeah.
My name is Uriah. I'm with Corporate Solutions, and we actually have an Angular opportunity. We have they're looking for somebody who's expert with Angular and can get a team up to speed. So if you're really good with managing a team and can help other people mentor, I'm talking.
What's your name?
Uriah.
Uriah. Excellent.
I'm new here. Talk about you guys. My name is Red Radiojic, and I'm a senior .NET developer working on backend mainly, Space for 10 years. Still trying to be current in LS. So look forward to it.
Okay. With that being said, call for presenters. We do this every time, but if anybody's interested in speaking here, definitely get in touch with either one of us. We have a message board on our Meetup page. It's a cool opportunity, especially if you're looking to shop this out to a bigger conference or something where a good group of guys to get in front of and gals to give feedback and stuff and have kind of that back and forth if you're looking to kind of work out a talk. This is a great place to do it. We don't bite. We're a nice group, so definitely get at us for that.
Yeah, this is a great platform. I did my first tech talk here with the Angular in 2015, and everyone is awesome here. Good place to get feedback for your talk too. So if you have something you wanted to bet for a bigger conference, like Joel said, this is definitely one of the places.
Totally. Our equipment's not too shabby either. So. Other than that, lightning talks. Yeah. Is there anything cool anybody's working on they want to jump up real quick, get some ideas on, share, brag? Cool. Okay. So with that being said, I will give the floor to Kevin, and he is going to come up here and give his OWASP top 10 AngularJS applications. If I can say that whole sentence without fucking up.
Whoever didn't see it on the oral side.
Go, you
got HDMI. Jump straight into that. Oh yeah. Right.
You know, it worked last time I just plugged in. So,
Sometimes
let's, oh, that's magic, huh?
It is magic.
How do you debug magic?
the force is not strong.
Wait.
All right, cool. So, I am especially looking for feedback, like I said on this talk. So this is a talk I've given once before at an internal conference, given it here. I'm actually got accepted at NDC Oslo, and I'm going to be giving it on the last day in the last time slot. So obviously not a feature speaker, but so any feedback you guys want to give me, no problem. If you see me speak for me, but Angular MN, I got some pretty good feedback on the talk there, and I made those changes before I gave the talk, and it was super worthwhile because it really helped. So the nice thing about it being recorded is I'll be able to capture that. I'll be able to listen to it and capture that feedback, so I don't even need to take written notes.
You have free plane tickets to Oslo?
Yes.
Oh.
I know, that's why I was a little surprised when I sent it in and got accepted, but hey, what are you gonna, you can't argue with free. So that, I'm gonna record myself. Actually, first I'll just introduce myself a little before I record it, because whoever wants to listen to that. I'm a software architect over at Thomson Reuters, work in kind of our tax and accounting product space. Used to work in our legal space. We've got a lot of web apps. Some have Angular, some don't. I work with a lot of groups, and I also focus a lot on security. So one of the things that I wanted to do is, because not everyone looks at security and tries to do that, figure out, okay, what is it we should do with our apps that we should do across the board, and make sure that everyone is kind of looking at these things and understanding them. So that's one of the reasons I put this talk together, to say, okay, how does this stuff apply to kind of our AngularJS app? So that's kind of the genesis of this talk. So we'll see how it goes. Record myself so I can watch it. Okay. OWASP, the OWASP top 10 for AngularJS applications. Slideshow though. So this is the description you probably saw on the Meetup itself. OWASP top 10. It's the 10 most critical application security lists. So how do these relate to AngularJS apps? I think we've all heard of XSS and CRSF. Okay, so we're gonna, what else do we need to know beyond those? We're gonna review the kind of the top 10 with the front-end development focus on HTML and JavaScript. Look at some patterns to implement, stuff to avoid, look at some built-in features of AngularJS. That's what's going on for tonight. So, do I need to, this is straight from the AngularJS FAQ. Do I need to worry about security holes in AngularJS? Because the answer is just yes. Okay, you do. I could just put that on there. Yes. Right, and that could be it. But they have a more elegant description than that. So, like I said, it's not impervious to attack, right? But there is a bunch of built-in protection inside from security holes. So, and we'll talk about a bunch of those. But that's what I said. Right from their FAQ, yes, you should worry about it. The OWASP top 10. So who has heard of that? Raise your hand. It's pretty good. Like maybe about half the people. It comes up a lot. It's a broad consensus of what the most critical security flaws are. They take polls, they find out what happens in the field, they rank them, and these are the top ones. Anyone know what number 1 is?
SQL injections.
Oh,
What else would it be?
yeah, that's a good one. Yes. Very good. So we will look at the top 10, which are numbered 1 through 10.
Never goes away.
Yes, it never goes away. And so I won't read this slide of them because we'll go through each of them individually. But yes, injection number 1. So
Angular doesn't fix that?
well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. We'll discover on upcoming slides. So here's my CSS joke up at the top. Right? So we're gonna. So I said we're gonna be focusing on HTML, Angular apps, JavaScript. We're not gonna be focusing on kind of server-side components or database components here. So what I'm trying to do is pull it up and only focus on the stuff that's Angular specific, because if you want to just focus on security in general, there's almost an unlimited number of things you can talk about, which does make things hard. Like SQL injection isn't going to happen in AngularJS, so I'm applying some of these top 10 to Angular. Yeah, it stretches a little, so we'll see how that really applies. But even though I said we're not talking about the server side, I did want to list there is a bunch of HTTP headers that are used in security a lot, so it's good to kind of be aware of these. They will turn things on your browser like cross-site scripting protection or content security policy or content options no snip. So a lot of these come from the server and they're important. So if you're going to do any app across any platform as long as it's HTTP, setting these headers becomes important. Then you can go also up to OWASP to find this. Or there's tons of good content out there. If you happen to have a Pluralsight subscription, there is a lot of good security talks during, like Troy Hunt has got a lot of good ones, including he's got an AngularJS security fundamentals one that just came out in the last month or so, which I figured when I saw that come out, I figured there was no chance my talk is ever just going to be accepted somewhere. But he's already got like 3 or 4 sessions at Oslo, so I'm sure he didn't have time for another one. But a lot of good info out there. All right, injection, the number 1, the obvious number 1. So flaws: SQL injection, OS injection, LDAP injection. Pretty much untrusted data is sent to interpreter. It says part of a commander query, right? Your hostile data tricks the interpreter into executing unintended commands, right? So we've seen this is probably the most common. It's the most demoed. People put stuff on URL and they dump the whole database out, all right? So you don't really have that in AngularJS, but there is a subtype of injection called content injection or content spoofing. So I thought if anything applies for injection in AngularJS, content injection would be it. So you don't properly handle user-supplied data, right? Reflected back to the users. You might say, how is that different than cross-site scripting, content injection, other than you just needed to fill out slot A1 on your slide deck? Because you don't want to go at the first one and say it doesn't apply. Then you should probably reorder your top 10. So on the OWASP side, again, they say it's closely related to cross-site scripting, right? But if you think about it, if cross-site scripting intends to get the script tag in, does that really cover getting other tags in? I'm going to say no, so I can fill it out. So we're gonna go with that and kick off the presentation. There is something called ng sanitize. So who's heard of ng sanitize or Angular sanitize? Look at that. That's about half the people, so that's pretty good. You have to include it as a separate source file there. You got to include it in your module. You know, there's a dependency there. What does it do? It parses the HTML into tokens. It's safe tokens, which are all whitelist provided, which is good. Serialized back into a properly escaped HTML string. Okay, that's pretty helpful. So let's look at a JavaScript example. So I'm on my scope here. Don't be mad at me for not using controller as syntax here, okay? Scope that insane, right? I put a bold tag in there, and I put a script tag in there, and then I put an XSS tag, which isn't even a real HTML tag. I just put it in there just to see what it was going to do. And then I had scope.sane, and I went and I sanitized that string. So I took the same string, assigned it to a variable, and then I sanitized it. All right. Now I have some HTML here. So I have my view model, sane, and my insane variable. And then I'm also going to do an ng bind HTML at the bottom there and dump out the insane version of it. So think in your heads, what is this going to output? Right? You go back here, it's a bold tag, a script tag, and an XSS tag. What do we think the the sane is going to output. Anyone have any ideas, or do we just want to move on? We'll move on.
Yes.
Here's what it looks like. Here's the HTML that it looks like, and up in the top corner is a screenshot. So we'll see that the sane one totally stripped out the script tag and its body, and it got rid of the XSS tag element, which isn't really HTML, but it kept its inner text there, and it turned the B tag into actually just an LT and GT. So, all right.
Did a pop-up occur?
Huh?
Did a pop-up occur?
Um,
On the bottom one? You
That
take
is
with
a good
this band
question.
tag? Of the binding?
I don't remember if it did actually or not. I don't think it did, because it didn't show up in the HTML, so I'm gonna guess it didn't pop up. It's a good question. I should probably capture that there, but the top one was the sane one, okay, which was the sanitized. The insane one was the one that was straight up.
Is it treated as a breed tag, maybe? Like breed shows.
Yeah, the bottom one actually, you could see it inserted the bold and it put the span, but none of them put the script tag in. So that was good. There is another service, strict contextual escaping. Okay, who has heard of this one? Okay, so we'll say a quarter of the people on that one. All right, it lets you mark as things that are safe for a context. So as it says right here, copied from the Angular docs. You can take the arbitrary HTML, put it in the ng bind HTML tag, and those are kind of these privileged contexts. So we'll see an example of this next. So I went and said $scope.trusted, and I took my same string with the bold, although I put the word trusted here instead of not saying. Put my script, put my XSS tag, and then I went in my when I did that, you'll see that the bold tag, the script tag, and the XSS all put in there. So this one did pop the alert because the script tag got dropped right into the HTML. This one did the alert. So, but I had to go ahead and use that contextual escaping and say trust is HTML on it and do that. So just ng bind by itself, if we look back at this one, right, that didn't, that still had some safety there because I sanitized it and I got rid of the stuff. But once I used the trust as HTML, okay, now I can actually inject myself with script tags.
SE is baked into,
Huh?
SE is baked in, you don't have to add like that.
Yeah, I didn't. I think it is because
Yeah.
I don't think I didn't include anything. So unless it was in sanitized, I think it's baked in. Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of this, I did these originally with still Angular 1.2 last fall. So probably a caveat. As of tomorrow, this is all probably going to be wrong again. Right? Once 1.4 gets released, I'll go look and I'll look it up and we'll see what's really true or not. So maybe the shelf life on this presentation is like 8 hours until the morning when the newest streams have them. But I'm sure that it all won't change. But we'll have to probably go through and see what else is new.
So when would you use this context as when would you?
That's a good question. Do you know?
So yeah, I've got a vendor gives us data, and part of that data is formatted HTML. They put the markup in what they want. So then I just pop it out, and we use the SCE to do that.
When it's trusted from coming from internal.
Yeah.
Another example is we have documentation examples where we put the example in there as HTML. It'll render the example as HTML, but also render the example.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good answer. If I was rendering this on the server side, if I was back in I like server side rendering mode, I might feel safer doing this because I know that I'm putting it out there. But if I'm rendering a client side, then I'm kind of opening myself up to more kind of user supplied data. But it kind of all depends on what you think it does. It's you got to know you're going to trust the input. So we've had other stuff too where you'll get pre-rendered HTML. Maybe it's bold tags around search term hit markup, and you got to apply that. So you want to have that that show up. Interpolate. Who's used interpolate or $interpolate? Yeah, okay, not that many people there. We'll say 10%. There's one place I think I used this for something, but it doesn't seem like it comes up that often. So we're just going to look at, yeah. I'm just going to have an example of this one. So I should probably add something there. All right, let's move on to A2, right? Broken authentication and session management. And a lot of this is server side too. Okay, how's my session keys working? So let's, from a client side, let's kind of think about the stuff that we might care about. So I might be doing from Angular, I might be doing some sort of session keep live and pinging, right? I might have some sort of thread some sort of timeout that's going and ping it down, keep my session alive. So I can kind of, Angular can affect that. I want to make sure that in my client-side code I handle session timeouts correctly. So if the guy come down and the session's not good, maybe I want to do something like the bottom bullet point. I want to clear kind of local storage and get rid of data that's kind of in the browser. I want to be able to manage my OAuth tokens safely on my client, because that could break broken session management if I left my tokens in cookies and I didn't clear them out and somebody else could maybe grab them. And again, stuff that I pull down through the client that I put in cookies or I put in session storage, I put in local storage, maybe on time when I want to clear all that stuff out. One of the ways that I've done this before is put a response interceptor. So anytime it gets a 401 request, you've probably seen this where it'll go ahead and send you to a login page. If kind of a REST call or an AJAX call, it kind of goes down and comes back with 401. One of the patterns that I saw that was useful was in your 401 handle, go ahead and broadcast an event, and then somewhere else listen to that event. So you kind of can decouple instead of redirecting right to log out here. And that allow you to kind of do multiple things at that time. Here I had an example when I respond to the auth failed event. I might want to clear out my user info, clear out my cache, maybe if I had local storage or session storage, get rid of that stuff before I turn around and redirect to the login page. Yes?
Well, I just wanted to comment on one cool thing I've done along the lines of that is like, you can actually so you make a request, right, and it fails, you can actually cache the contents of that request and then actually okay, we've logged back in again and replay it so the user doesn't lose their data. So that was one kind of cool thing.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I actually wrote a library for it too to kind of handle that.
Send the request down, it fails. You remember what the request was going down.
You replay all of that.
Let them log in, and then once that completes, go ahead and
and not only that, you even you have the promises cache, so
okay.
you'll actually rerun the promises. So it's like your consuming code, it has no idea that anything weird even happens. So you can just have that login screen.
That's cool.
It's kind of clever.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Things like that.
Would you roll it down?
I think I better. I'll find it. And I'll tweet it.
Yeah, go ahead and post it as a comment on the.
It was
find it. That's
cool.
a good.
It's very useful, and it just removes all this stuff that you normally have to think about, like error handling, and it's like you don't have an error handler. It just works.
Okay.
So,
that's pretty cool. All right, cross-site scripting, one of our favorites. So cross-site scripting flaws. This is, like I said, real similar to how injection reads, except for this actually lets you run scripts on the victim's browser. So it's like injecting content that's actual script tags and it's executable content for the browser. So to me, like I said, content injection as part A1 and cross-site scripting seem real, kind of real similar in concept. So a lot of the Angular features that we looked at from A1 really apply to this as well. Who has heard of content security policy? Okay, probably let's say 20% of the people. If you haven't, here's a video. You can go on YouTube and watch it. You'll learn a lot more. You can spend 30 minutes learning about it from him, or you can hear me give you the wrong answer. Pretty much, it's a header that comes down from the server that tells your browser what to do, and it says, okay, trust script tags inline, don't trust them. Trust inline CSS, don't trust it. Here's domains to trust. Here's kind of a bunch of kind of advanced kind of security features. So watch every of the browsers supported except for IE. Go figure. Although I'm going to guess, I think Spartan probably has got support for it. It's pretty useful. Here's, you go up to contentsecuritypolicy.com, and if you can see, I went to the console on that, Chrome console, on that site and did a little document.body.appendChild document create element script and created the child of that was a text node alert cross-site scripting to see if I could execute it. And you'll see I couldn't because I got a nice red message. That actually prevented the script tag from being inserted. So that content security policy header from the server told the browser, no, inline scripts are not allowed. And it says it only allows script sources that come back to it, things that go to Google Analytics. Unsafe inline wasn't allowed, so therefore that script didn't execute. So this, yes.
Does it mean that we cannot execute bookmarklets, for example, JavaScript colon some code?
You know, I haven't tried a bookmarklet on a site that does that. It depends, I think, where it executes. If it tries to insert it into the DOM, you can't. But I don't know what the execution context of a bookmarklet is. That's a good question. Anyone have any idea? Anyone tried that? I don't know.
Maybe you can go there and try it. Just
I could go there and try it.
documentation.
I tried it on your site. It doesn't.
Oh, it does. Oh, okay. Look at that live studio audience. Give that guy a free beer. All right. Okay, so it didn't execute. That was good. So this is something that you can enable. Now, AngularJS has got a directive called ng-csp. So they have content security policy support. And the reason that they had to do something special is that AngularJS often creates, uses strings and generates functions for the speed optimization as they're kind of building stuff up. So if you do that and that header's on, it's not going to work. So you have to put this directive in place so that it does a different optimization. So they said at this point, when I grabbed this off their site, it was like 30% slower. I don't know what that really means in the real world when JavaScript's fast and really it's the DOM that's slow. So I haven't done any kind of real world test to see how bad that is or isn't, but I know that the JavaScript engines are constantly improving and getting faster, and so I can see, and I'm sure they're kind of optimizing things in Angular too to make this better. So it is something I know Google is all over security.
I'm gonna switch to React, I guess.
I guess so. Yes, you could. This also, you can set it up to not allow for inline style sheet rules. And since Angular JS automatically includes some of those rules, you have to add also a CSS file in there yourself. So that's, turn this on, you got, like I said, two things to turn on, add that directive and include the CSS file. So, and that hopefully will prevent any cross-site scripting, because since you can't insert script tags, you don't have cross-site scripting. Yes.
Is the reason why you couldn't inject CSS rules because it's a security risk, or is it a side effect of not being able to inject scripts?
There is there are two separate rules in there, having inline CSS and having inline scripts. So you can, if you wanted to in your policy, you can set the different permissions for each domain you allow scripts from, whether it has kind of allows inline scripts or allows inline CSS. But if you were kind of the strictest mode, you couldn't have inline CSS. So I think anything inline has got the ability to kind of do something bad. So that's my guess why they have it there. I don't know that there's a lot of inline CSS and stuff that I've seen lately, so, or at least the projects I've worked on. But probably means that some things like jQuery and hide don't work. Don't use that anyway, right? Okay, insecure direct object reference. All right, this is when you, developer, right, because developers are always wrong, right? You expose a reference to an internal implementation, right? So you kind of have a direct key to let you get to something in the database, right? I'm going to pull up another example from the Angular docs where they say, hey, here's $resource, that's awesome, right? It lets you just create a template and put your keys right in line here and send it down. Right, so here's a nice, great example from their site that actually had a credit right in there, which is good because it is the kind of thing you wouldn't want a reference to. Now, it doesn't mean that Angular's got a problem. It's still a server-side concern to go ahead and validate the security of that direct object reference. But if you use something like $resource, it just makes it easier for your attackers to exactly know what your URLs are. Now, they can probably pull up Fiddler and figure it out because, you know, they are pretty smart. But, you know, thinking about, oh, I created a resource and made it really great, and probably some of the other frameworks that let you build up you know, REST-style paths as well, the same thing. So just something to think of. When the parameters are going in there, make sure that they're indirect parameters or direct parameters. So.
Did you an example of what you mean by that?
Like if you were going to use somebody's like name exactly versus some sort of GUID for them. You don't want to have a app that says, okay, here's like users Kevin, users this, and then don't do the security check on the server side, and just assume that if they know what the URL to the path is, they can expose it. So the two things that you can do there is, one, you just want to secure each resource on the server side to make sure the logged in user has access to it. And two, you might want to use not like a direct reference like their name, but use like a GUID key. So it depends if it's something that you want SEO optimized or not. And if it's just kind of a REST file coming down that's a resource, that's probably not being indexed by search engines, so you don't necessarily care that those URLs are as human readable. But mostly it's, again, the server side implementation. But if you see it's like /user, you know, :username, oh, okay, now I just put any username in there and try it, can I get the data? So again, mostly a server concern. So not a lot to do on the client there. Number 5, security misconfiguration. All right, so you know, you're basically deployed with the defaults and they're not secure. And the bottom sentence there is you should also keep your software up to date. They kind of bundle those two things together. Bower, I'm probably sure we've all heard of Bower. Package manager for the web, right? Right. Bower install Angular. Although I'm going to need some help afterwards because I can't get my Bower working anymore. And I think it's my corporate proxy. I don't know. Silly me. Years ago, I set it up and I sudoed on my Mac, and now I want to clean it up, and I might need some help. So after this, somebody help me clear my Bower cache so I can actually pull the packages down. Help. But what's scary about that is anyone can register a Bower package, right? So do you just do Bower install whatever? Do you really know what code you're getting, right? Now Angular happened to register their own Bower packages. So yeah, Bower is good for installing stuff and good for keeping it updated. So if I have a good version, I can get the latest version with security fixes. But if I go in Bower and I register Angular or something and flip the letters around, can I get some, somebody install that instead? So you kind of got to worry a little on both sides on this one. It's helpful, but you're also not downloading, you're letting this download it for you. So one typo can get you the wrong stuff. And here I did Bower install Angular last year. It's still 1.2, right? That's what it looks like. And I do an up NA installed Angular sanitized part of this demo. Works great. So I'm gonna get those updated once I fix my Bower. All right.
The only concern I have, can you specify a version number with Bower?
Yes. Yeah, you can. I think you just put the at the end of these, you'll see the pound 1.2.3 on the resolved. If you actually request it with the hash and the version number, you'll get the version. And it uses whatever the version branch in Git. I think it uses whatever the tag is in Git for it. So if the authors were good and they did semantic versioning, it works great. I done the specific version to get some stuff before to try something, but most of the time just get the latest. Run the latest. So I don't put code in prod, so it doesn't matter, right? Just run the latest. So cores, probably we've heard of cores now. That's been around for a while. There's some headers that have to go down for credentials to be allowed. So one of the the questions that I, to kind of deal with secure configuration, should you go ahead and set your defaults to send cores credentials down, right? Do you want to do that or don't you want to do that? Because then every request that goes down, it's going to send down cookies and authorization headers. Or do you only want to do that on the requests that are going to places that you trust. Now, if you're making a request from your browser, it probably means you have a script on your page, so they could just turn it on anyway. So maybe it's not that big a deal, but it's the kind of thing to think about when you're just going and setting defaults. Or do these defaults make sense all over the place? Or, do some services I'm sending stuff down to, do I have a mix of anonymous and logged in providers that I'm working with as part of my core servers, and I only explicitly want to set the credentials for certain ones because the user happens to be logged in. So something to think about. It kind of happens behind the scenes. It happens because of a default parameter. Sensitive data, yes.
The question may not be related exactly to cores, but is there a way to do a post to a third-party website, kind of like Google does? I guess they do it in, they show you the advertisement related to you in an iframe. So is there a way that you can achieve that with just without iframe?
Yeah, so
you post
cores will allow for that. The server that you're sending it to needs to opt in to say that the domain. So you'll see the top header there, access from control allow origin. So the server you'd be posting to has to be able to say, yeah, I want to take it from this client, and the browser enforces that. They might put just an asterisk there if they wanted to get everything. A pre-flight request will go down and come back if you're not using the get tag. And if you're using anything less than IE10 in the IE space, it's not going to work probably for you. They had some, what did they have? They had a different, they had a non-standard implementation there that didn't send down cookies. So it depends if you need the with credentials stuff didn't work in the X domain object. So it does allow for any method.
Is it meaningful to send a cookie that comes from this domain? I mean,
if you're trying to go come across and get some stuff back from like Facebook or Google or Dropbox or one of those sites where you actually are maybe going to pull some data in, then it is meaningful because that might be how they how it works. Maybe with that you probably wouldn't have an OAuth token for those, so it kind of depends. I guess.
But cookie is coming from the source, and you're going somewhere else. So that cookie is meaningful only to the source server.
Yeah, but in the course case, you're actually sending from the browser to a different server. So you're loading a page from an origin server, but then you're sending it to a third-party server. And if you want that post or request going to a third-party server to include any credentials, cookies or auth headers, you need to turn this on.
So cookies become headers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, cookie is a header, right?
Oh, that's what cookie is not like cookie, but header.
Yeah. So if you look at HTTP, you'll see.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the other side is interpreting as self-issued cookie on that server. It's just analyze that as some kind of other token, right? And if you have IE9 or others that don't support cores, can you use iframe? I guess they're doing that in ADSL library to do some kind of retrieving of ID and codes, identity ID and code in ADSL.
If you have the option to set up a proxy, it's going to be a lot cleaner. Course only applies to web. Server-to-server communication is exempt from that. So if you have a proxy, like a Node.js proxy server running, you have a proxy that then talks to Google, it will just work.
I'm talking about client side.
Yeah, so if your client talks to the proxy that talks to Google, it'll work.
Okay.
But
yeah, before cores, we did a lot of reverse proxy stuff, and even at the point when we could have turned cores on, we didn't because we already had to have the reverse proxy stuff working for IE 7 and 8 and 9 at the time, right? So I'm gonna move on, but there's a lot of stuff there. There's also, because it's been around a while, there's some good information out on the internet on it too. So sensitive data exposure, right? You got to protect your data, right? This is one that used to be, they used to have one of the OWASP top 10 was insufficient transport layer security, but the solution to that was just turn on SSL. So it really didn't deserve its own whole thing in the top 10. So they combined this to talk about anytime your data is going back and forth, make sure it's protected. So here is where I'm going to refer back to one of the HTTP headers called strict transport security. It's another one that is sent from the server, goes to the client, and it pretty much tells your browser, anytime you ever come back, HTTPS. You don't even need to come talk to me HTTP the first time because I'm going to redirect you anyway. So just start with HTTPS. So that's, and you can set an age on that one. So that's pretty useful. If you know your site's always going to be secure, and many of the sites that I work with, they always are. So the first redirect is HTTPS. So that's something that makes sense to turn on. You know, don't put sensitive data in your URLs, right? As you're kind of in Angular and everything's down the route, you know, and in the fragment you're doing stuff, you might be tempted to kind of like just let everything be URL parameter, but now they get logged. It means they get logged in browser history, and they get logged in. They get logged in the server logs and stuff. So you know, that's kind of common sense there, but that relates to Angular. And then if you're going to store sensitive data in local storage, which persists across your session, you know, should you do something without using encryption? And again, if it's the kind of apps that I work on that have kind of sensitive financial data, or accounting data, or legal data, now you got to worry about, okay, what do I do if I, you know, should I actually put that stuff in local storage and leave it there? Somebody can come back and look at that later. Maybe if you had access to the computer, you could get it anyway. But if somebody asked you, did you encrypt it everywhere? You could say, yes, I did. I encrypted it everywhere, so it's not my fault. And there's a web cryptography API that you can use to do that if you wanted to.
Point out too that all of your JavaScript, especially stuff in scope, is easily accessible. So if you have an encrypted string that you decrypt into some variable in your JavaScript, you can get that out.
That's a good question. And there's, I've got a presentation I've given on the web cryptography API, and what's a little hard is if you have access to their computer, you have access to memory, and you probably pulled it into memory anyway, and the key is in memory, and you can do it. So the only real attack is if I can get to your computer afterwards, and I could go in your local storage and see something. But if I could get to your computer anyway, I probably could have access to everything you had on there anyway. So it really only prevents you from somebody that has like read-out access to your computer later. But you know, if you can encrypt it and it doesn't affect your app, well, you know, that's an option. Just think about doing that, especially if it's an offline app. And the example I've done before is you basically take it offline. You still have to enter a local password to get in. There's key management issues. What's interesting is looking through the Angular 2 design docs in their data persistence section of their document. They talk about, hey, we're going to have a new ngStore module. It's going to wrap all the disk storage like local storage and IndexedDB, and all these services are going to support encryption. So they've kind of called this out too in their 2.0 design doc. That's something that they want to, support. So that's kind of interesting there. So that's not all of the dumb idea, right? Angular cache. This is one cache replacement. There's probably it's the internet. There's probably 100 of them. You can replace Angular's $cache factory. You can put it in memory mode, local storage mode, session storage mode. The reason I brought this one up is you might think something's in memory, but somebody pulled in a library that does advanced caching and it puts it on disk. You don't realize that you're storing it on there. You think, oh, it's just in cache memory. It was really in local storage memory or session storage memory. And that's the kind of thing that's useful if you need to survive a page reload. Maybe you don't have a fancy login box like we talked about earlier that remembers what you did. Maybe it redirects to a page and logs you and then redirects back to your app and effectively reloads the whole app, but you still want to take advantage of some of the performance overhead of caching some of maybe the request data or even some data you got from your app. So you got to kind of watch out for that. Remember, because when is storage really cleared, right? If it's variables in the code, when the page closes, it's gone. If it's a session cookie, all right, when the browser closes, it's gone, right? If it's session storage, also when browser closes, maybe when tab closes, depending on which browser it is. Sometimes the session storage is tab isolated. A persistent cookie, that goes away when it's expired. And then whether the browser deletes it right away or not, that's kind of for the browser, but that's got an explicit end date on it. And local storage just stays around until you clear, until it's deleted. And maybe once you hit like a 5 gig limit for that particular domain, the browser might do some clearing for you, or if the user does goes to the controls of the browser and clears the cache and then clears local storage, that might happen. But that's why dealing with local storage, you have to think about it, because it's going to sit there on their computer for a while, even after they've logged off of your app. So if you're data sensitive, you got to think about it. All right, missing function level access control. Right, you don't want to just be able to go to like /admin and just do whatever you want. Right, so it's kind of like, seems like similar to the insecure direct object references a little. So you want to do the, if you're going to do something in the UI and it's just like some CSS hiding it to keep the admin button gone, you still want to, if somebody turns it on, you want to be able to check it on the server. So again, I say this one, A7, it's a server concern. Okay. In the 2010 list, they had it a different name, failure to restrict URL access. But part of the reason I think it's kind of interesting here is a lot of times we're talking about putting our static assets on just kind of in a fast web server that just does caching. There's no security. It's not part of our app server. Maybe it's on a CDN. And that's where a lot of our logic is for our application. And a lot of the code is moving up to the browser and it's sitting in Angular. Well, if I'm not really restricting that, and I just have, I've got function and maybe it's a software you pay for, and I've got functionality there that, like, if I go to this screen, I have to pay money because it makes better, cool visualizations. But all it's doing is calling the same endpoints that you can get in the free mode that just shows you like an HTML table, right? Well, if they can just unhide the button and turn on the feature, they can get to it because they got they're executing all the code. If they can also get to the data, they can turn it on. So, it's kind of a little stretching there, but when you think about it, it's not coming from MyS or it's not coming from Tomcat. So you can't restrict the pages of the HTML it's loading up. So one of the ways that this doesn't help secure it, but was playing with, is if it's a route that really is an anonymous route, like let's say the contact us link, maybe you can throw an attribute inside your route configuration. I just used regular Angular routing here, nothing fancy, and I put an extra data attribute and said, okay, this is anonymous, so go ahead and route to that one, no problem. But if I intercept a route change and I'm going to go to a path that doesn't have that anonymous attribute, then maybe I redirect you to the login page. So again, here it doesn't really secure you from the client side, but it does make it a little more convenient. You can't navigate to a page and then all the REST calls get 401s and redirect you, where it just looks bad on the screen because you're not handling the errors right. You can kind of do some sort of hints inside the router to kind of redirect you there. So cross-site request forgery, probably again our second favorite one behind cross-site scripting. Again, straight out of the Angular docs, consider these threats: JSON vulnerability, cross-site request forgery, and they like to switch C's and X's around once in a while. So it's always fun. You'll see CSRF and XSRF. But Angular comes with some pre-configured strategies to kind of address these issues. They have JSON vulnerability protection you can turn on, where if you go ahead and prefix this string in front of your JSON, it'll just go ahead and remove it. This is the kind of string that has a whole bunch of closing items, close little quote, close parentheses, so that somebody can't put something in front of it and try and use it to like execute the script directly. Yeah, you can kind of look that one up for the details on that one. It's kind of interesting. That's kind of it. Google's been using that for a long time. There's a lot of examples of that out there. So if you need to return the array 1, 2, again, this is coming out of the Angular docs, go ahead and you can return the one with the closing brackets, and it will go ahead and strip the prefix before it processes the JSON for you. So that's a way to cooperate with what the server would do. On the OWASP site, there's something called the synchronizer token pattern, and that's a fancy name for something I think we've all used in some of the libraries. We've had anti-forgery token. If you're .NET and you turn that on, that's the name there. A challenge token that should always come down with the request to know that it's coming from your code from the site versus some third-party site that's just coming down with with the cookie cross-site. There's a mechanism baked into Angular to handle this. You can set the, set this token name if you want, turn it on. The header isn't set for headers aren't set on cross-domain requests, but when your code on your site is sending down, you can go ahead, it goes out, calls the set header. So that's the strategy. That a lot of the server-side framework libraries support that. This allows you to set the what do you want the token name to be, or the header name to be. So this kind of makes it interoperate with a bunch of the different frameworks. Go ahead, yeah. So you can configure the defaults for the header name and the cookie name. There is, again, a lot of good information on the OWASP website about cross-site scripting. They talk about CRSF, right? So it's pretty easy to prevent CRSF, but if you have a cross-site scripting vulnerability on your page, then they can get around it. So it's almost like CRSF is easy, cross-site scripting is hard, and if they can get on your page and run code, it doesn't matter if you have CRSF protection on or not. So it's almost like kind of doesn't matter. It's easy to solve, but if you have the other thing broken, it's broken. All right, so what if I don't even have a session cookie?